What's going on, everybody? Hey, I want to welcome you to another episode of Learning from the Experts. On this episode, I actually want to tell you a little story about how I was making a fraction of my potential, and I had no idea. So here's the deal. I know how frustrating it is to waste countless hours sifting through wannabe experts who never actually help you in the end. Then to learn years later that there was a real expert who could have helped you 100 times faster than learning it on your own. I have created this podcast to save you time and money while taking you on a journey with me as I learn from real experts who can actually help you grow your business. My name is Coulton Woods, and you're listening to Learning from the Experts. So I know I talked a little bit earlier in one of my earlier podcasts about how I was running a phone and tablet repair business while I was in college. But I want to tell you a little bit more and go into a little more detail about just kind of how everything was going and how the business was going and things that I didn't realize I was doing / not doing, and I could have been doing, so much better than I was. So, first off, I really had no marketing experience. I had taken some marketing classes in college, but I feel like a lot of those are kind of almost like bigger company kind of marketing and tactics that are a little bit older strategies anyway. So I really didn't know much about marketing at all. So, but I was growing this business, and I actually was paying for some marketing, and I even ran a Facebook contest and didn't even realize that what I was doing really. But I thought, hey, we'll run a Facebook contest, see if we can get some followers. We actually got quite a few followers off of it, but and then didn't really run anymore. I think we ran a couple more, but should have just kept it going. So what I want to tell you though is with the money that we were making, it was not. We were making very much, really, honestly. We were just kind of making enough and skipping by, and we were putting a lot of money into our inventory, actually. And the problem with that was we had all of this money in inventory, and phones get outdated pretty quick. Tablets get outdated pretty quick. And a lot of times you don't end up using those parts, but I didn't realize until later that it actually still worked if we only carried the parts that were used more often and then special ordered the ones in that were one-time fixes, and we could have saved a ton of money that way. But anyway, so what I realized is since I've ran that business and grown that business and done that, I've learned a lot from different marketers and experts. One of them, the main one being Russell Brunson. And if I would have known back then what I know now, I know that I could have made at least 10 times as much as I was making back then. But the problem is also, I didn't know back then that I didn't know what I didn't know, if that makes sense. So, and honestly, I was still kind of just getting into learning from all of these experts. And so now that I've gone through and learned different things and applied myself and gotten better at different marketing tactics and techniques and learned from lots of experts in that field, if I could go back to that time, I would have done things a lot differently, and I would have done more things, and I would have structured things differently. But now that looking back on it, I've also learned what I can do better in the future. So my point is that there are still things I don't know. There's still things I don't realize that I don't even know. I feel like it's a almost daily, if not weekly occurrence where I'll hear something, I'm listening to an audiobook or a podcast or reading a different book, or I'm sitting next to Steve Larson and he's doing a podcast, or he's teaching somebody something, and I learn something from that all of that's going around me. And I'm like, oh, I never actually realized that before. And wow, that's a really cool concept. And so I'll write it down and I'll try to teach it so I can internalize it a little bit better. That's actually why I am doing this podcast. I don't know if you've noticed that, and you will notice that, is these golden nuggets, or as Steve Larson would put it, truth nukes. We're trying to change that term to truth nukes. As I learn these just awesome little bits of marketing knowledge that I try to teach them on this podcast so that I can better internalize them, but also so that you can also learn them for yourself and use them in your business. Great experts out there. Russell Brunson's, I've been following him for a long time. I think it's been like 5 years now. Before ClickFunnels was even around, I stumbled upon him. He totally sold me on something on a webinar that I was brand new into, like college even. I was brand new into like business online, anything. I didn't even I was just barely starting to apply myself like 5 or 6 years ago. Actually, it was more than that. It was like 6. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so, I'm just getting into all this stuff, and he totally sold me on a webinar. It had to have been the perfect webinar script. I don't even remember. I think I was pretty sure that I'm like, I don't really know what this is, but I know I have to have it. So I totally bought it, and I really had no idea what it was after that, but it was a good time. So that was kind of the start of following Russell Brunson before he had ClickFunnels, and obviously now he's done pretty well. And ClickFunnels we use that daily. Obviously, with our business, it's what drives our business. So my point is, though, as of right now, even for Russell Brunson, someone as big as himself, there are still things that he doesn't know or hasn't realized, or may have not come about yet. And there's things that I know he publishes about that are kind of like new things, new ideas that haven't really been in the industry or been taught before. And so there's always something new coming about. And if you're not actively in that realm, or actively listening, or actively paying attention to the things that are happening, you're going to miss those golden nuggets or those truth nukes that come by. So my point is, you have to stay current. And yes, these experts, these people that are just so well ingrained with marketing or what they're doing, even in your industry with what you're doing in your industry, if you're staying, like when I was in the tech industry, when I was doing my business fixing phones and tablets, I was actively researching phones and repair guides and different things that people were seeing were issues. And as a new phone came out, I was watching the teardowns, or people tearing them apart, and then things that maybe were going wrong as they changed apart or tore them apart or whatever. And so in your industry, you have to be actively studying. And if you're not, you'll fall behind. I haven't been active studying in the tech industry, and I can tell you that I am like years behind now, because I haven't studied it for well over 2 years now. And 2 years in the tech industry is that's huge. It would take me a lot to catch back up and get going on that. So you have to always and be actively, just studying and learning. A great thing, Tony Robbins talks about net time, like no extra time. I live by this rule for 100%. When I'm driving to work or driving somewhere else, especially when I'm by myself, I don't just drive with nothing playing. Occasionally I will play some music when my brain may be just a little fried or something. But other than that, I always have a podcast on. I always have an audio book playing no matter what. And the reason behind that is because I'm always studying. I'm always increasing my knowledge. I'm always upping my game. And if you're not doing that, you're going to fall behind pretty quickly. I learned one thing kind of crazy that I learned in school. The reason big corporations actually, a lot of them it's crazy to see, but a lot of big corporations will go bankrupt or will kind of just cease to exist, or won't be able to keep going the way they are. So they'll have to either downsize or shut down. And the reason for those corporations that have to do that is because they can't innovate quickly enough. And so that's kind of I think that's interesting, because someone in there may be studying and keeping up to the times, but then as they try to make changes, it doesn't happen quick enough. And so if a huge corporation can go bankrupt or lose all of their market just based on not being able to implement something or new strategies and innovations in time, that has something to say about the importance of keeping up on your game in your industry or in marketing. Because if you don't, it's going to be really hard to stay relevant. It's going to be really hard to just be staying above the curve. And nowadays things can change so quickly. You have to really be on your game. So that's kind of the podcast idea that I wanted to talk about today. And I have a good quote here that I think applies very well. And when I heard it, I was like, oh, that is so true. And it is by Dan Kennedy. That guy is the man. If you haven't studied Dan Kennedy, I would highly recommend you do so. But the quote is, the higher the income, the more the person paid for who they are rather than what they do. I'll say it again. The higher the income, the more the person paid for who they are rather than what they do. I think that has a lot to say about the importance of always educating, staying relevant. One last story to let you go. So I work with Steve Larson, and obviously Steve Larson was, if you know Steve Larson at all, he was Russell Brunson's lead funnel builder for 2 years. And he was telling me a story. I think he's actually told on his podcast and other places, but he's telling me a story about when they moved offices, when ClickFunnels moved offices, Russell had to throw away like a ton of books and courses and stuff. And he says it was interesting because as they were throwing stuff away, Steve would like hold up a book and be like, do you want this book? And Russell would look at it and go, no, he's not relevant anymore. Throw it away. And then like he'd hold up another book and be like, yeah, he's relevant. He's good. Like, keep it. And Steve's like, man, that's really interesting to me that Russell would base the keeping of a book on if the person was relevant or not. And meaning like if the guy is actually, if his content still works for today, but kind of almost like mainly if he's still putting out content, he's still up on his game. Because I think that's really interesting to me. And I hope you find that interesting as well. So that's a big thing for someone like Russell Brunson to base keeping someone's book or course on if they are just relevant or not. And so good thing to learn from that. But yeah, I'm super excited for you guys to be on this podcast, and look forward to telling you more things that I'm learning and just things that I'm coming by from experts around me as I'm around them and in their areas. So thank you very much, and we'll talk to you later. Are you looking to jumpstart your business by learning or getting help from the real experts? Go to learningfromtheexperts.com to find pre-approved experts that I've handpicked for you. Please don't forget to let me know how I'm doing by subscribing, rating, and leaving feedback.